grew up in a Christian home. My dad was basically like a pastor, not at a church, but just in general, reaching out to kids. So we had kids over all the time, leaders for Young Life, always talking about God and planning for all of our events and stuff. So a big turning point for me personally in my faith was in 2015. There was a event for stand-up paddling called the Sup Fiesta Junior Pro. And it was this event that kids from all over the world would come to. And it was in California, like Huntington Beach area. And I went for the first time in 2014 and took third place in the sup surfing. And so I was super determined from then to take first the next year. I was like, this is the year. I'm going to get this. It's going to be it. And so I trained. I had my coaches, my dad. We were doing long days at the beach, running heats and everything. And so we went back in 2015. And we had just flown in, and it was like the next day we visited my grandma in Santa Barbara, and I just got new wetsuits. And so I was like, okay, I'll break them in and we'll just go out in some really small surf. And I went and surfed, and I got super tired, and I went to jump under a wave. And before, my dad was like, okay, Lara, you're all good. Just make sure beware of that one rock, like right out there. And I was like, okay, it's all good. I'm not going to hit that rock. And we had surfed, and I went to dive under a wave. I jumped off my board, and I ended up hitting the rock, and it scraped down my face, and I got 46 stitches. And I rushed out of the water, and I was like, I think I hit the bottom. And my dad's like, okay, we're going to the emergency room. And I was like, not going to the emergency room. Can't you just super glue it? Like, I'm supposed to compete in 4 days. And he's like, nope, we're going to the emergency room. And my grandma actually works at the emergency room in Santa Barbara at the hospital. And so we got in fast. And then, so I ended up getting 46 stitches, just like right down my nose and all the way under. And it was actually a huge blessing just because my grandma works at the emergency room. So she got us in quickly. And then, because everyone knew her. And then turns out like the #1 plastic surgeon was on duty that day. So you can't even see the scar. The scar's almost gone now. But he did an amazing job. And so that was just a huge turning point for me because I had been training for so long for this one event. And then for it to just be taken away like that in like 1 second from hitting a rock on the bottom of the ocean was huge. But I like fully trusted in God that it wasn't over and that I was going to be able to compete. I actually got off the table after he was done. I'm like, so can I compete in 5 days? And he's like, maybe you should go home and rest and just wait it out for a little bit. And I was like, okay. And so for those couple of days at my grandma's, I was just like fully trusted God, and I prayed about it. And that's when my favorite verse, which is a lot of people's favorite verse, but for me it was huge just because of this situation, was Philippians 4:13. And so we stayed at my grandma's for a little bit, and then we ended up going to see the surgeon, and he was like, well, if you compete this weekend, you're totally allowed to do that. If anything happens, I'll just stitch you back up when you come home. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so we ended up going down to Huntington, and I competed with the stitches in my face. It was like this huge thing for me just because I got to go in the water like 5 days after I had stitches. And I competed in the race and in the sup surfing, and I made it to the semifinals. And so it was like a huge thing for me because I was still able to compete, and God totally was like, okay, Lara, like, you made it to the semis, like, you did good here, you got to surf. And so that was a huge thing for me, just trusting God's timing for things, because I thought that was going to be the year and I was going to win, and trusting that his timing was everything. And then the next year I went back and ended up winning the sup surfing. And so it kind of like made me realize, whoa, okay, I get it now. God's in control. His timing's perfect. And it made the victory for me so much better just because that crazy journey that we went through.